My name is Dona Lúcia. Today, I'm going to share with you a story that will touch your heart and make you reflect on what truly matters in life. You know, when you reach the age of 70, people expect that you have lived beautiful experiences, surrounded by love and care. But, in my case, things took an unexpected turn. Just imagine a woman who spent her whole life caring for and raising a child, who, in a moment of weakness, was abandoned by him in a nursing home. Yes, I know that just hearing this hurts, but what happened to me in that place was far beyond what I could imagine, and this is a story you won't want to miss. Many people think that reaching an advanced age means rest and tranquility, but I experienced a twist that would change not only my days but also the way I viewed life. When my son admitted me, I was just doing what he thought was best for me, or at least that's what I thought. But this best turned into loneliness and sadness. Instead of being surrounded by the family I always imagined by my side, I found myself in a room at a nursing home, filled with strangers and surrounded by silence. It was as if my life had been put on pause and the world had moved on without me down. Before you start to think this is just a sad story, let me tell you that the twists of life can surprise us. While I was there, I discovered many secrets about the nursing home and even about my own son that changed everything. This led me to make choices that no one expected, not even me. And if you think that being abandoned means being vulnerable, you are very mistaken. The life and wisdom I accumulated taught me that there are other forms of power we can achieve, even when everything seems lost. So, if you're curious to know how I transformed my pain into strength and became a respected figure within those walls that once seemed so cold, stay with me until the end. You will be surprised by the turn this story takes, and perhaps you will emerge from it with a new perspective on love, forgiveness, and inner strength. So, get ready, because this is not just a story of abandonment. It is a true journey of self-discovery, and I will take you with me. Together, we will unveil each chapter of this experience that, despite being painful, made me the strong woman I am today. After all, sometimes you have to find a bit of light in the darkest situations. Now, come with me, and let's begin this story. I was once a woman full of life, filled with dreams and surrounded by love. Let me take you back to those sunny days when my home was a true home, where joy was a constant guest and laughter echoed through the walls like a sweet melody. I used to wake up every day with a sense of purpose, with a smile on my face, wondering what the day would bring. Oh, how wonderful it was. I remember the mornings when the aroma of fresh coffee filled every corner, mixed with the sound of bread baking in the oven. Those were the little things that made everything so special. My son, still a boy, would dash around the house, leaving his contagious energy in every step. I was his biggest fan, and I saw in him all the hopes and dreams I had carried. The afternoons were filled with stories, tales of princes and princesses, of magical worlds we created together in our imagination. And at night, when darkness fell and the stars appeared, we would sit together on the couch, sharing our joys and venting our frustrations. The gatherings with friends and family were true celebrations. The house buzzed with lively conversations, music, dancing, and that familiar smell of dishes prepared with love. Laughter was contagious, and it was there that I felt most alive. Every shared laugh, every knowing glance, every moment lived together formed the foundation of my happiness. I had a life rich in connections, experiences, and love. But, as you know, life can be capricious. Over time, things began to change slowly, almost imperceptibly. My son grew up, and, as happens with many young people, he started to follow his own path. The times he returned home became less frequent, and those moments of joy and togetherness began to give way to a silence I couldn't comprehend. Crossing my arms over my chest while watching the empty chair beside me was an experience I never imagined I would be living. Why was it so hard for him to just be present? And even when we were together, there was a growing distance between us, as if an invisible wall had been erected. I tried to reach out to my son, attempting to understand his worries and desires, but it seemed that something was pushing him away from me. I wasn't sure if it was just adulthood calling him, or if there was something deeper that was separating us. My heart ached with this new reality, and the emptiness that formed was not just physical, but emotional. In this transitional scenario, the idea of a nursing home was something I couldn't even imagine. The life I had built and the bonds I had created seemed to be slowly crumbling, and the shadow of abandonment was already beginning to creep in. I longed so dearly for our happy days to return, but reality proved merciless. Looking back now, I can see how everything started to fall apart, but at the time, I still had hopes that somehow we would find our way back to each other. This is the life I lived before the nursing home, and if I am here today to tell this story, it is because life holds surprises that can change everything, even when we least expect it. So stay with me, because along this journey, I will show you how I was able to transform that pain into strength and self-discovery. I am excited to share this experience with you, so let's walk together on this path that still has much to reveal. But over time, things changed. My son, whom I had raised with so much love, began to drift away, and the transformation was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. I still saw him, of course, but it was as if a fog had settled between us, turning moments that once were filled with joy into silent encounters. I tried to convince myself that it was just a phase, that maybe work, studies, or life were consuming his time and attention. Every young person needs space, I repeated to myself, surrounded by a faint hope. But the truth is that what I felt was an agonizing growing absence that began to make itself known. The first sign that something was wrong, the conversations that once filled the house with life became sporadic, and when I saw him, he always seemed to be rushing, always busy, as if there was a whole world out there calling for him, and I was just a distant echo of his past. I remember one particular day when I planned a special dinner, one of those that always made him come home. I prepared his favorite dish and decorated the table with my best linens and plates. But when he arrived, he barely noticed what I had done. He was distracted, his gaze fixed on his phone. And the conversation I hoped would turn into something special was soon suffocated by the coldness of his indifference. Sometimes, I wondered if he noticed the lack of warmth in our conversations, or if he had become so accustomed to this new dynamic that he didn't realize what he had lost. Each time he left, he took with him more than just his smile. He carried away the illusions that, as time passed, everything would be okay in his own way. Those little signs of abandonment began to accumulate, becoming a shadow that spread throughout the house, and I found myself desperately trying to keep them trapped in a place where they were no longer welcome. I started to notice changes in his behavior that, if directed towards a professional life, would have been acceptable. But the truth was that, at least for me, everything seemed to turn into neglect. He no longer had time for weekend lunches, nor for the outings we used to enjoy together, places that had always been ours. I wanted to understand, I wanted to connect, but the barriers that were rising were almost insurmountable. With each visit, there was a new absence. One time, I decided to talk to him. I called, nervous but determined, ready to open my heart. "You've been so distant, son. I'm worried, and I feel like we are drifting apart." His response was brief and emotionless. "Mom, I'm busy, don't worry, everything is fine." And with those words, I realized that, for him, everything really was fine, but for me, it wasn't. More than that, I realized that I had become a distant point in the busy life he led, a mere detail that didn't deserve more than a fleeting thought. These moments, though painful, were merely the prelude to what was to come. The reality of abandonment tangled itself in every interaction and in the memories I desperately tried to preserve. But it seemed that, as time passed, those memories were dissolving like sugar in water, difficult to grasp and full of flavor, yet leaving behind a new space of absence. Each day brought with it doubt, a deep longing for answers that would never come. What I didn't know at that time was that this whole story was about to change immensely, and that everything that had happened until now was merely the first act of a drama that would unfold much more quickly than I could imagine, and in the most unexpected ways. So, as a blank page, allow yourself to be carried away by the twists that are coming, because what followed in my life would be surprising and transformative. One day, he made a decision that left me devastated: to admit me to a nursing home. "It's just for a while," he said, but I knew his words sounded empty, like a promise that was already beginning to crumble even before it was made. The ground beneath my feet seemed to open up, and I felt like I was collapsing into a bottomless abyss, where there was no more light, just an echo of loneliness. How could he do this to me? The son I had spent a lifetime raising, teaching, and loving. I couldn't understand the reasons behind that decision. Tears streamed down my face as I urged him to change his mind. When I finally arrived at the nursing home, everything felt so different from what I had imagined. The first impression was one of coldness, a place that contradicted the very concept of home. A large, impersonal building, with beige walls and long corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. The smell was a mix of disinfectant and something else, as if life were being drained from there. I looked around and saw other elderly people, some bent under the weight of loneliness, and others lost in their thoughts. And then, that feeling of abandonment intensified. My heart raced, and anxiety overwhelmed me as I thought that I was miles away from the home I had built with so much love. The first weeks were an emotional torment. I would lower my head and walk down the hallway, trying to find my place in this new world, but each step was accompanied by the pain of helplessness. The nurses were kind, but even they could not replace the affection of a son. I wanted to scream, wanted him to know how I felt, but the words caught in my throat. And in many moments, the only thing I could do was sit in a chair in one of the common areas and observe the people around me, trying to find meaning in this new chapter of my life. What bothers me the most is that, despite the sadness and despair that accompanied me, I found small fragments of hope amid the pain. I began to learn about the activities offered and socialize a little with some of the other residents. And as this happened, I discovered that many of them also had sad stories, but filled with wisdom. Among those conversations, I gained strength, particularly from a lady named Dona Elvira, who, with a gentle smile, would say, "Here, we still have life, if we allow ourselves to live." Her courage and spirit inspired me to keep going. The first nights were the hardest. The silence of my new home reminded me of the house full of laughter and the warmth of memories that had always filled my space. The space around me felt strange, and at those hours, the sound of my own thoughts became deafening. The warmth of my son's hugs and those moments of affection became memories that felt as distant as a past life. Eventually, I found a new rhythm. I learned to adapt, but I never stopped missing him. In fact, during this process of starting over, I ended up realizing something surprising. The nursing home was not just a place of abandonment, it was also a community, a space where feelings intertwined and forgotten lives intersected. I began to participate in activities, from painting classes to music sessions, and I realized that there was still beauty in human connections. It was as if the nursing home was offering me a second chance, even if it wasn't the one I expected. But even after all these discoveries, the wound was still there, pulsing and reminding me of what had happened. I knew I had to do something about the pain that accompanied me. I needed to understand my son's reasons for that devastating decision. There was much to unravel, many questions still unanswered that continued to echo in my mind. And that need for answers drove me to move forward, preparing for what would come next, a revelation that would change everything, both my life and his, and that would undoubtedly bring a new meaning to why things had fallen apart the way they had. So, let's discover together what proved to be a path full of surprises and revelations as we delve into the secrets and emotions that fate still held in store for us. The memories arose like a film recorded in my mind, each scene projecting feelings of sadness and confusion that I couldn't dissipate. When I arrived, everything felt like a blur of emotions, the smell of disinfectant in the air, the cold and inhospitable walls, and the vacant gazes of other residents, all lost in their little worlds of solitude. The feeling that I had been abandoned was so palpable that I could almost touch it. What did I do to deserve this? Was the question that reverberated in my mind as I walked through the hallways, trying to find my new place. I remember seeing the receptionist with a forced smile, an expression that seemed rehearsed for this type of situation. But I couldn't absorb her cordiality. In fact, all I wanted at that moment was to feel the warmth of a familiar hug, to hear my son's voice telling me everything would be all right. Instead, I only encountered curious glances and the indifference of those who, like me, had become residents of a place that was not a home, but rather a temporary refuge in life. With each stride, with every step I took, a root of doubt clung more tightly to my soul. What seemed like a new phase in my life quickly transformed into a labyrinth of uncertainties. I received the keys to my room, and upon opening the door, I realized the space was small, but sufficient. There was a twin bed, a table, and a window overlooking the garden. But that place didn't make my heart pulse. The vibrant life that used to exist was gone. My eyes scanned the walls, searching for any trace of warmth, any memories that could comfort me. When the door closed behind me, loneliness flooded that room like a crashing wave. It was then that I sat on the bed, and the only thing I could do was cry. Those were the hardest days and hours of my life, as the reality of abandonment became more intense with every passing minute. I thought of all the nights I had dreamed of being by my son's side, making plans, hoping for him to grow up and become the man I had always known he could be. But what had happened? Where were the promises? These questions accumulated within me like an unbearable weight. I discovered that the other residents were fighting their own battles. While I sat in the lobby, I watched groups talking, sharing, laughter and old stories. And even though I wanted to join them, there was something holding me back, as if an invisible barrier separated my pain from theirs. A feeling of disconnection overwhelmed me, and I felt like a stranger in a place that should have been a new beginning. The daily activities began, and soon I found myself involved in meetings and card games. One of the residents, an elderly gentleman with white hair and a gentle gaze, started telling me about his life and adventures. This helped me see that although the past couldn't be changed, there was a new life to be experienced, and perhaps there were still possibilities ahead of me. But no matter how hard I tried to convince myself to be grateful for this new opportunity, the shadow of my sadness remained in those first weeks. I still woke up in the darkness, searching for answers to what had happened, dreaming of hearing my son's voice calling me again. During one of my walks in the garden, a glance at the sky made me reflect on the changes that were hypnotically unfolding in life. But the truth was that every flower blooming there seemed to scream that I still had a role to play, even as I sought to understand the why of it all. And so, gradually, the pages of my story began to turn. But at that transition point, the pain was still evident, while the promise of new horizons presented itself before me. What I didn't know was that this painful reality would be the strength I needed to rise again. And as I confronted those emotions, a new chapter began to unfold, one I was eager to discover, taking into account that even in the worst circumstances, life could still surprise and reveal unexpected things worth living and exploring. So, let's move forward together on this journey. For transformation was just beginning, and every day held more to come. After a few days, I realized that he was really gone. I was alone and abandoned. Reality began to reaffirm itself like a cruel whip, and the realization hit me in a way I could never have imagined. My son, the little one who once was in my arms, now lived in a distant world, and I found myself in the middle of a labyrinth with no way out. When the first shadows of loneliness enveloped me, it felt as if the light had been completely extinguished, and at that moment, I was overtaken by a wave of despair that seemed endless. Without the warmth of his presence, the laughter that once filled the house was now echoes of a past that could not be relived. Looking around me, the walls of that nursing home had become silent witnesses to my pain and confusion. As the hours dragged on, each moment became heavier, a constant reminder that I was there by his choice, not mine. What had I really done to deserve this feeling of abandonment? That question perpetuated itself in my thoughts, like a mantra repeating in the solitude of my new world. The nights were the hardest. When silence settled in and absence became palpable, I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather the strength not to succumb to the sadness that surrounded me. The feeling of being at the mercy of life was overwhelming, and in moments of despair, I found myself revisiting memories of celebrations, of moments of love and joy that had once filled my home and my heart. Amidst it all, the memories of warm hugs and intimate conversations only amplified my loneliness. It felt as if every good memory was a cutting knife, reminding me of the current emptiness. I allowed myself to feel all these emotions, the ups and downs that came with my new reality. It was oddly comforting to acknowledge my own vulnerability. What once seemed a weakness began to transform into strength. I knew I needed to find something greater in the pain I felt, and gradually, I began to observe the other people around me. The nursing home was not just made up of loneliness, there were entire life stories, friendships to be formed, and a sense of community that I had yet to explore fully. As the days unfolded, a cycle of activities established itself, and I began to blend into this new microcosm. Conversations began to flow slowly, and in the interactions with others, I realized that many of them also longed for company. As we talked, I allowed myself to open up a little more, and a new type of connection began to blossom. Some people had stories of similar losses, and while I couldn't change my own destiny, I met new companions who helped me understand that loneliness didn't have to be a prison. On the contrary, it could be a path to rediscovering myself and forging new bonds, new horizons. This revelation brought me a new perspective. Instead of living in a constant state of lack, I realized that I had the ability to create a new home, even within these cold walls. The love that I no longer found in my life could be discovered in unexpected friendship and genuine affection from others. The fact that I was there and still breathing allowed me to live and discover new meanings in the little things. Even though my son was not by my side, life was giving me a second chance to love and be loved. After observing life bloom around me, I began to understand that change was not just about adaptation, but rather an opportunity for growth. And each day, I was lightening the weight of loneliness a bit more, opening my heart to the new friendships that were forming. This was a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, light can seep through unexpected crevices, and the doors to new experiences were still opening before me. Thus, as each day passed amid new encounters, I allowed life to flow again, and so, my journey continued, taking me down paths that promised discoveries and the possibility of a bright future that I could not yet foresee, but that, at the same time, began to make me believe that even amidst abandonment, there was life and reason to move forward. This reflection led me to a new phase of this journey, and I continued, awaiting what would come next, ready to embrace each new chapter that awaited me. But then, I met the wonderful team that took care of us. They became my family. When our eyes crossed for the first time, something changed within me. The first feeling I had was of welcome, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The staff members were not just dedicated professionals, but also people with beating hearts, full of empathy and compassion. I sensed that life there could have a different meaning, and the weight of abandonment began to dissipate, even if slowly. At first, I observed them from a distance, a bit skeptical. The way they interacted with each resident, the way their smiles lit up tired faces, intrigued me. They didn't just see people as numbers or cases to be handled, but rather as human beings, each with their own stories, challenges, and desires. Each of them had the ability to make anyone feel special, even in a place that could easily be forgotten. As they approached me, my natural resistance began to melt away. Over the days, I started to learn their names and noticed the affectionate gestures they made, from encouraging words to the warm hugs offered to those in need. It was on a sunny morning that everything began to change for me. The team organized an interactive activity, an outdoor painting session. At first, I hesitated. I thought about refusing. In fact, I thought that maybe I wasn't good enough to participate in something so joyful. But the team was there, encouraging every step and telling jokes that quickly shattered the barrier of my hesitation. One of the nurses, named Marco, approached me with a genuine smile and said, "You have a palette of colors around you. Let's do this together." And in that moment, I couldn't help but smile. He took my hand and, unknowingly, claimed the first thread of hope that I still had inside me. From then on, I allowed myself to go with the flow, and as the brushstrokes began to flow, I realized how tightly I had held on to pain and the past. There, amidst the colors and the laughter of the team, I began to open my heart, to let my vulnerability show. The team brought vibrant paints, but what impressed me the most was that with every laugh and every conversation we exchanged, they were not only painting the canvases around us, but also filling the gaps that had been left in me. I wondered if my heart would be able to open up again and love, and they were there to show me that yes, it was possible. As the days went by, the interactions became deeper, and I began to share stories about my life, my accomplishments, and the ups and downs that had shaped who I was. What I didn't expect was that these exchanges would be so significant and inspiring. I met people who also had their own battles and challenges, but the way they faced life brought a new perspective to what I had gone through. Each conversation became an opportunity for growth and learning, and gradually, a genuine support network formed around me. The team not only took care of our basic needs, but was also committed to providing a safe space where we could share our experiences. I noticed that they became more than just caregivers. They were true friends, people who genuinely cared about our mental and emotional well-being. It was as if, in each person's fragility, they found a purpose that transcended the mere routine of work. From those interactions, a sense of belonging began to blossom. I was not just in a nursing home, I was in a new home surrounded by people who truly cared. On one particular afternoon that remains etched in memory, Nurse Anna brought a cake she had baked herself to celebrate a small birthday. And as the residents gathered around, I heard laughter and life stories intertwining. Moments like these were essential for my rebirth. Each slice of cake shared was not just a celebration, but a symbol of new friendships forming. I began to feel that there, in that space that initially seemed so cold, there was human warmth, love, and compassion. And slowly, the walls started to spread into new, vibrant colors. And so, my journey in this nursing home began to transform, from something solemn and sad into a space of rebirth and celebration of life. The team became my new family, and the interactions that were once just a routine turned into precious moments that I would cherish deep in my heart. When I thought I had hit rock bottom, I realized there was a rope extended toward me, and that, with each connection, I was climbing up again. Thus, what had once felt like a chapter of loneliness began to unfold into a story of love, friendship, and renewal. With that in mind, I started to prepare for all the new learnings, wisdom, and of course, the new challenges and adventures that were surely awaiting me in this new home. I was beginning to call my own dot. It was here that I began to hear rumors about the nursing home, that it was much more than it seemed. At first, all I saw were the common walls and the daily routine that seemed to repeat, a kind of monotonous repetition that could easily deceive me. But as the days passed and I settled a bit more into this new reality, I began to notice small conversations among the residents, whispers that snuck through the hallways like dry leaves in the wind. They were fragments of stories that involved mystery and curiosity, something that sparked my imagination and ignited the desire to discover more. It was in one of those conversations, while I was sitting in the shade of a tree in the garden, that I overheard two ladies whispering about something they called the secret of the nursing home. This immediately caught my attention, and I leaned in closer, absorbing every word that came from their lips. They spoke of secret activities that took place under the cloak of night, events that were unannounced and many residents were unaware of. The idea that there was something beyond the usual daily routine made my heart race, a mix of excitement and a certain restlessness. They have meetings under the stars, one of them mentioned with a sparkle in her eyes, as if she had been holding a precious secret for too long. They say that in these meetings, they discuss everything, from lost memories to old promises that were never fulfilled. My curiosity heightened even more, and I couldn't help but think that this place, which initially seemed dark and oppressive, might actually hold a hidden world, filled with interconnected stories and lives waiting to be revealed. As the days went by, I began to ask questions about this secret. The team, which had already become like a family to me, was also a part of this mystery. Nurse Anna, always friendly and open, once let slip during a conversation that there was something special about the residents, something that transcended the simple, daily coexistence. It was as if she was holding the end of a thread that could lead me to something grand, but she wasn't ready to show me yet. One of the nights when I felt the restlessness growing in my chest, I decided I needed to know more, so I waited until night fell and the house lights began to dim. The air was cool and the stars shone brightly in the sky, creating an atmosphere full of promises and possibilities. I moved silently toward the far corner of the garden, where the trees intertwined to form a natural shelter. From there, I could hear murmurs and laughter amidst the whisper of the leaves. My heart raced, mixing anxiety with a palpable anticipation. What I saw from a distance was surprising. A group of residents and team members gathered in a circle, holding lanterns and sharing stories under the moonlight. It was a spectacle of joy and interaction, a blend of laughter and tenderness that couldn't be genuinely documented in the rigid schedule of daily life. Each of them seemed to be in a state of freedom, as if in this gathering they could finally be who they truly were, away from the routines that had once defined their lives. What was most fascinating was that I could feel the energy emanating from them, a vitality that resonated in every laugh and story told. It was then that I realized the nursing home was not just a place for those who felt lost or forgotten, but a space that nurtured human connections and shared stories. Every wrinkle on the faces of those residents told a narrative, and every story shared that night was a celebration of the lives they still had. This made me realize that, in a way, this place offered me not just refuge but also a new way to see life and to value the experiences that each one of us could still offer. That night, I took a deep breath and felt immersed in the rhythm and flow of life around me. I decided I would no longer be just an observer. I wanted to be part of that vibrant circle, through the laughter and stories that echoed under the stars. Now, I was allowed to open my heart and share the pains and joys we brought with us. This experience transformed into a journey of discovery, revealing that the nursing home was indeed a home full of life, and it was in that human involvement that the true spirit of the place began to shine. The determination grew within me to go beyond the daily routine and explore this deeper, more meaningful side of the nursing home. I was eager to discover stories that had yet to be told, and the connections that could be formed. The curiosity about what else could be unveiled in this place became a driving force in my journey, something that propelled me to dive deeper into the experiences and lives of those around me. Looking up at the starry sky that night, I understood that each star shone not only to illuminate my path but also to remind me that there was always something more to be found, something that could transform not only my view of the nursing home, but also my own heart. And so, the quest for the secret of the nursing home would become the new direction of my life. An adventure I was more than ready to embrace. I discovered that behind the facade there was a management structure that I was helping to guide, even from afar. As those routine days in the nursing home unfolded, I realized that each conversation and moment shared with the residents were not merely trivial interactions but parts of a bigger picture that was beginning to reveal itself to me. The first time I heard murmurs about the structure that supported the nursing home was in one of those moonlit evening meetings, when each person's stories began to intertwine into a mosaic of lived experiences and life tactics. Listening to the accounts of others felt as though a veil was being lifted, and I started to glimpse what really lay behind the seemingly simple, yet profoundly impactful service that this place provided. The team always cloaked their caring with genuine warmth, but as I got more wrapped up in the conversations, I began to realize that those people were more than just caregivers. They were the heartbeat that kept the nursing home alive. While chatting with Marco, the nurse who always had a smile on his face, he shared some curious insights about the management and strategies necessary to ensure that all residents felt at home, even in an unfamiliar environment. There were regular meetings among the staff that addressed daily challenges, the needs of residents, and even financial issues that often lingered in the shadows. With each revelation, a part of me awakened to a reality that had been previously hidden, but it was in this learning process that I understood that even from a distance, I had an active role. The experiences I brought to the nursing home, the conversations I had with family members, and the solutions I suggested during interactions became, even if indirectly, essential parts of discussions about what could be done differently. Weight of this realization began to settle in, transforming into a new impetus, a responsibility that made me see the nursing home not as a place of abandonment but as a space for action and transformation. Something within me began to warm, and the idea that my role could be more significant started to solidify in my mind. This new perception led me to want to engage more, not just as a resident, but as someone who could actively contribute to improving everyone's daily life. I felt that despite my recent arrival, there were fragments of experiences and knowledge that could benefit those around me. I started by organizing small meetings with other residents, where we could share ideas about what we would like to see changed or improved. The conversations quickly became lively. Ideas flowed like a river, and I felt my confidence grow with each new suggestion that arose. It was exciting to realize that despite the fragility some of us exhibited, the collective strength was capable of effecting change. With the support of the team, I saw an opportunity to facilitate new events, creating a space where we could share our skills and passions. Nurse Aina soon became an ally in this endeavor, always excited and eager to help me plan an art exhibit where everyone could showcase their creations, as well as a talent fair to share the skills each of us had acquired. Over the years, my vision began to take shape, and the idea of collaborative management solidified with each step we took together. It was as if with every small project, I was weaving a stronger bond, not only with others, but also with myself, rediscovering a sense of purpose I didn't think still existed. And so, as we worked together to bring our ideas to life, I realized that the connection forming between us, the residents, and the team, had the power to strengthen the nursing home, turning it into a true home. The laughter during planning meetings, the smiles when new activities were announced, And the atmosphere of joy and vibrant community that began to emerge became the fuel we all needed to thrive. I was involved in something larger than just my own little world. I was part of a network of support, love, and discovery that would not only impact our lives but also the culture and spirit of the nursing home. The revelation that I could be a positive influence gave me a new boost, a renewed energy that seemed to radiate through me and infect everything around me. I was awakened to the importance of the role we all played in shaping our environment and the comfort we could offer each other. This new journey was not limited to past experiences but expanded into a future full of possibilities. Looking around, I felt immense gratitude for having found a purpose, even amid adversity, and I recognized that together, we were creating a space where everyone would be heard and valued. And so we all walked together, facing challenges and celebrating victories. The nursing home, which initially seemed like just a shelter, was transforming into a vibrant community, a home that blossomed and grew through collaboration and mutual caring. With each new day, the management that had previously been hidden from me was now becoming an important part of my journey, and I was eager to discover what more the future held. With renewed determination and the unbreakable unity among us, I could hardly wait to unveil the next chapters of this extraordinary experience, filled with learning, transformation, and love that unfolded day by day. I started to engage with other seniors and realized that many had stories similar to mine. As the days unfolded, I saw that this nursing home had become not just a refuge, but also a space for sharing and connection. What began as mere curiosity about the environment, about what was said between the lines, was now transforming into a support network that stretched through the hallways and living rooms, revealing traces of lives that, like mine, faced losses, struggles, and the quest for rebirth. One morning, as I walked down the hallway toward the activity room, I spotted Dona Marta, a well-groomed elderly lady with white hair, sitting on a bench in the shade of a tree. She was surrounded by a few old photos, each forming a dusty portrait of a past that seemed much more vibrant than my own. Curious, I sat next to her, and when her expression changed from contemplative reverence to a warm smile, I was warmly invited to take a look at the images. Each photo she showed me was laden with emotion and nostalgia, as if each click had captured not just moments, but the essence of her entire life. As she began telling her stories, I felt my heart pulse with the familiarity of experiences. She talked about her children, her career, her travels, and a youth that had been filled with adventures. But there were also shadows in the memories, moments of pain and longing that reflected experiences I had lived myself. It was as if each chapter of her old life mirrored fragments of my own. And this touched me deeply, almost magically creating a connection between us. With a gentle motion, she passed me a photo of her children on a sunny day, and I could see the love radiating from that image. What followed was a rich exchange of stories, laughter, and, in delicate moments, tears. Other residents began to join us slowly, drawn by the warm conversation that enveloped the small circle forming. It was a safe space where experiences were not just shared but welcomed with open hearts. I was introduced to others like her friend Joe, who had a story filled with achievements and challenges, and Dona Eliana, who had once been awarded for her mouth-watering cooking and had cultivated love for every dish she made. Each of them offered a glimpse of the vitality that still remained in their hearts. What once seemed like a group of sad and forgotten people now revealed itself to be a cauldron of life, experiences, and renewed hopes. The first thread of a bond was woven amid those shared moments, and I felt I finally belonged to something that was greater than myself. These interactions became more than just simple chats. They transformed into moments of learning and inspiration. Suddenly, the loneliness I had carried so intensely seemed to fade away, making room for something new and beautiful, which was friendship and solidarity. Soon, it was not just other people's stories that impacted me, but also what I had to say, the reflections that arose from my own journey, the applaud that I now allowed myself to share. What had once been a space of mere survival was now becoming a space of emotional growth. And gradually, I was building a new self, complete with the laughter and memories that we were all creating together. I realized that, for all the life had deprived me of in some moments, it had also given me the gift of new connections, bonds that could be formed beyond the barriers of time and pain. These daily encounters began to create an intricate web of emotional support. Day by day, we advanced together along a path that involved our past stories but also a future full of possibilities, reaffirming a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in a long time. During our meetings, as we shared our successes, pain, and even the day-to-day, I could see the strength each of us had, a resilient character reflected in the harmony of the group. A sense of quiet joy settled in, and I was deeply grateful for having been part of it. And so, as the bond solidified, a new layer of understanding entered us. We were not just residents of a nursing home. We were storytellers, travelers who had crossed long and winding paths in search of a safe harbor that we now found in each other. The hours we spent together were not just filled with words, but with building a new memory, transforming pain into learning, and ultimately into friendship. I was beginning to realize that the nursing home, with all its challenges, had transformed into a temporary setting for a new chapter, one grounded in unexpected bonds, love, and growth that would flourish as we continued on our journey together. I was ready to embrace all that was to come, with the certainty that, now, we would not be alone on this new path, and the future no longer seemed so dark. My time here wasn't just about abandonment. It was a chance to rewrite my story. When I entered this nursing home, I felt I was leaving behind a chapter filled with pain and loneliness, a weight that had accumulated over the years and felt endless. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I realized that something profound was unfolding before me. That bitter feeling of being in a final resting place began to dissipate, and instead, I was welcomed into a space that offered a new narrative. It was astonishing how life within the nursing home blossomed in ways I could never have imagined. Instead of being a space of stagnation, it became fertile ground for growth, both personal and collective. The daily interactions with incredible and resilient people awakened in me a new awareness that my journey could be shaped, that I could, indeed, alter the course of the narrative that had been haunting me. The feeling of being trapped in a cycle of abandonment began to transform into an endeavor of rediscovery, and I realized that the marks left by past challenges were, in fact, features that could result in something beautiful and meaningful. Through the conversations and stories we shared, I understood that everyone there carried similar burdens. Each of them had a past of struggles, lost loves, and hopes that seemed to have faded away. But there was also a vibrant strength that resonated in every encounter, a strength that was shared as we spoke about our lives. I saw how each story told not only allowed each of us to look back but also opened pathways to the future. This became a catalyst for rewriting our stories, to transform the chapters of pain into pages of hope and reconnection. I decided that I didn't want to just be a spectator in my own life. I wanted to be the protagonist of my narrative. I was inspired by those sincere exchanges and the friendships that sprang from that authenticity. I began to open up to activities I had previously avoided, like art workshops and literary gatherings within the nursing home. I discovered that through creativity, I could express not only my thoughts and feelings but also my essence. A blank canvas invited me to smear vibrant colors across all the pieces of my story that I had kept hidden. And there, with each brushstroke, I rewrote not just my memories but also the setting that embraced me. Soon, other voices joined mine. What started as a simple initiative to share stories evolved into a series of events that connected the residents and allowed everyone to express their experiences. We created a support group that became a safe space to talk about our frustrations, fears, and, most importantly, our dreams. By sharing secrets that had often been buried under a cloak of shame, I underwent a rediscovery that not only impacted me but also all those involved. The impact of these encounters made me realize that my profound loneliness could not only be transformed, but that I could also help others transform theirs. Every smile, every word of encouragement I could offer, became part of a vital support network. I learned the importance of being present, of listening and being heard, and in this way, the experiences of each person I shared began to weave together into a rich fabric of support and empathy, further uniting us as a group. The nursing home, which had once been a den of abandonment and melancholy for me, became a vibrant microcosm of life and resilience. Through conversations, activities, and a renewed purpose, I was able to transform my perspective and simultaneously positively influence those around me. With each new day, the feeling of belonging intensified, and I realized that I wasn't just rewriting my story but creating new pages that could be appreciated by others. The understanding that my experience could resonate in someone else's heart became fundamental in how I began to see the world around me. It was not just an ability to rewrite my own trajectory, but a capacity to inspire and guide others to do the same, to coexist with their stories, to embrace them, and, like me, have the courage to transform them. The impact of this experience transcended my own being, and I realized that each step I took on this new journey was deeply intertwined with the life stories of others. When I looked back and reflected on what I had gone through, I no longer felt the emptiness that had sharpened my senses, but rather a sense of gratitude for each experience that had shaped me. I was starting to see the nursing home as a place of new opportunities, of growing friendship and unexpected rebirth. The loneliness that had permeated my life now seemed like a distant echo, while the voices and laughter of others surrounded me, reminding me that in life, there is always room for redefinition. That with the right tools and the willingness to embrace the new, we can write our stories more beautifully and meaningfully. I was eager for what was still to come, ready to embrace the fullness of each new day that presented itself, like a blank page full of possibilities waiting to be filled with the colors of life and friendship. I began to get involved in the administrative matters, using my experience and wisdom. As the weeks went by and the ties between the residents grew stronger, I realized that the transformation of the nursing home was not limited to social interactions and new friendships. As part of this growth, a growing curiosity emerged in me about the aspects that sustained this place, about the details that ensured its daily functioning, and the vibrant dynamics that had formed. One afternoon, while I was engaged in an animated conversation with the team, Maria, the manager of the nursing home, mentioned some challenges they were facing regarding the budget and the scheduling of activities. The worried look on her face touched me in a way that stirred something inside me. The idea that I could contribute with my past experience and offer a new perspective began to take shape in my mind. I had spent many years managing small activities in my life, organizing family gatherings and community events, and I now realized that these skills hadn't disappeared but had merely been dormant, waiting for the opportunity to be awakened again. Soon, my mind began to buzz with ideas and suggestions that could help improve not only the quality of life here, but also make administrative processes more efficient and fluid. I scheduled a meeting with Maria, where I expressed my desire to collaborate on projects that could benefit the nursing home and its residents. To my pleasant surprise, Maria was open to suggestions and excited about the possibility of including new perspectives and approaches in administrative matters. She welcomed my offer of help with enthusiasm, and this ignited a flame I didn't know still existed in me. In the following days, I dove headfirst into administrative matters. I attended team meetings, sought to familiarize myself with the budget, learned about the challenges we faced in terms of resources, and saw firsthand the impact that efficient management could have on the residents' quality of life. I was introduced to papers and forms that, although initially seemed confusing, soon transformed into a puzzle I was determined to solve. Each day, I felt that my life experience was beginning to align with the current needs of the nursing home. Conversations became richer, and residents started to share their own ideas about what could be done to improve the environment. I spoke more with Dona Eliana about the activities she would like to see on the calendar, and with Mr. Pedro about his desire to organize a reading group. We all recognized that we were not just residents but also integral parts of the management of the place we called home. It was during one of those meetings where we discussed event planning that I noticed my previous experience in community work becoming increasingly evident. I understood that not only were my administrative skills valuable, but also my ability to listen, to hear the voices of each resident. Therefore, I began to create suggestions on how we could incorporate activities that were truly relevant to everyone, respecting diverse interests and experiences. In this way, the management of the nursing home was not limited to a rigid administration but became a collaborative process, where everyone's ideas and desires were considered. What had once been administrative problems now appeared to be opportunities for collective growth, both for the staff and for us residents. Together, we designed new routines that, even in the simplicity of an event, opened doors for moments of true connection. The idea of involving each resident in the creation of the activity calendar became a practice, establishing bonds that transcended the simple role of being residents. From bingo afternoons to small talent shows, everything began to flow in a magical way. a dance between needs and desires that fostered both collective satisfaction and individual joy. Gradually, the administrative routine began to transform into something more than just numbers and budgets. That management, which had once seemed distant and impersonal, became an extension of us, of the connections we were creating, of the energy and love we put into every activity. Each project, proposal, or idea we discussed was a way to reaffirm that the nursing home was not merely a place to spend the last years of life, but a vibrant space, alive with the strength of our stories, hopes, and dreams. Looking back, I realized how transformative this participation had been. By engaging in administrative matters, I was not only rewriting the narrative of my life, but also helping to shape the experiences of everyone around me, creating an environment where each person felt valued and important. The impact this had on me was profound, reigniting a sense of purpose and belonging that I didn't know I had lost. Thus, with each meeting and every new idea discussed, I understood that the nursing home was much more than a shelter. It was an echo of what we could create together, a fabric in which we were intertwined, resonating with the beauty of collaboration and the love that blossomed in every corner. Excited about this new chapter, I was ready to continue my journey, discovering and shaping not only my own destiny but also that of everyone sharing this sacred space with us. One night, while everyone was asleep, I devised a silent plan to take revenge on my son. As the hours went by and darkness enveloped the nursing home in a cloak of tranquility, a storm of emotions bubbled within me. I had experienced a series of disappointments over the years, and my relationship with my son had become a battleground filled with hurt and resentment. Instead of finding solace and support, I often found myself alone, abandoned amid feelings that seemed endless. The idea of revenge emerged like a tempting whisper, a way to regain a bit of control that I felt I had lost. As the leaves of the tree gently swayed in the wind, my mind began to stir, cloaked in a desperate need to make my pain matter. I remembered all the times my concerns had been ignored, how every attempt at contact felt like a longer battle than the previous one. The frustration and sadness I felt helped fuel this desire for revenge. And in those silent hours, pain transformed into determination. I needed a plan, an idea that would allow me to reclaim some of the dignity and voice I had felt slipping away over the years. I began to envision a series of actions I could take. What I really wanted was not only to make him feel my pain, but also to make him see the impact of his decisions on my life. With that in mind, I started to question what the most effective ways would be to show him that his behavior couldn't be ignored. A part of me hesitated, recalling the nights when love and good times had prevailed. But at this moment, pain seemed to dominate, and the plan began to take shape. I thought of subtle ways, actions that would make him feel the weight of what I had faced without making a fuss. Perhaps I would start with a letter, eloquently expressing everything I had accumulated in my heart, but without giving him space for defense. I could write about the happy memories we shared, but culminate in a revelation that made it clear how much his actions had hurt me. However, what intrigued me the most were direct actions, something that could reverse his behavior and make him reconsider his stance. I imagined developing a routine that involved less interaction with him, becoming a shadow in his life so that he would start to miss what he had. The constant presence, that distance, could force him to face reality, to ask himself if he was really willing to allow family ties to weaken to the point of becoming irreparable. But as the plan began to take shape and emotions intensified, I started to question the repercussions of such actions. Would revenge really be the right path? Instead of healing, the pain could spread even further, like poison that would ultimately consume both him and me. The tenderest memories flooded my mind, and I began to reconsider if this was really worth it, if I truly wanted to feed a cycle of pain, even though my desire to make him feel what I felt was strong. In fact, what I wanted most was for him to recognize my struggles, to understand the depth of my pain, and not necessarily to cultivate more resentment. As the night wore on, and the clocks in the room marked time that felt endless, the truth began to emerge. What were the chances that an act of revenge could heal something inside me? And what if, instead, I tried something different? What would happen if instead of taking revenge, I chose to open my heart and establish an honest dialogue, despite all the hurts? This shift in perspective began to unsettle me, testing the determination that had brought me this far. Would it be possible to find a place of forgiveness, even when anger and sadness felt so palpable? As I reflected on these questions, I realized I had two choices in front of me. I could choose to walk down the dark path of revenge, which would likely leave scars not only on my relationship with my son, but also on my own soul. Or I could embrace the uncertainty and challenge of confronting my son honestly, being vulnerable enough to share my pain and ask for what I truly needed from him: support, understanding, and presence. This choice, while more difficult, seemed to hold the potential for a new beginning, a chance to genuinely transform the dynamics between us. The decision began to solidify as the first rays of sunlight began to peek over the horizon, illuminating my surroundings. Instead of a revenge plan, I was now starting to conceive a plan for reconciliation, a path that, while filled with uncertainties, could finally lead me to a place of healing and restore the connection I so longed for. With this, I would not only rewrite my story but also open the door to a new chapter with my son, one that could be filled with understanding and love. And so, with the sun rising in the sky, I left the idea of revenge behind, remembering that what I was truly seeking was much more subtle and profound: the opportunity to mend family ties and discover what had always been deep within my heart: hope for a life more connected, true, and full of love. I held secret meetings with the board. It was my moment to shine, and no one suspected a thing. In fact, it was almost thrilling to think about the clandestine nature of these meetings, as if we were moving pieces in a strategic game, where the future of the nursing home and the lives of the residents depended on our decisions. As night fell and most residents settled into their rooms, I made my way to a quiet room in the back of the building, where the board met with an air of seriousness and determination. As I entered, my heart was racing, not only from the adrenaline of the situation but also from the feeling that I was about to make a difference. In the first meetings, everything felt a bit intimidating. The board members, men and women with many years of experience, debated the challenges we were facing, financial limitations, the need for new activities, and I felt like a sponge absorbing all that information. But as the meetings progressed, confidence began to emerge within me, and I realized that my ideas and suggestions were valued. I was not just a bystander, I had a role to play, and this made everything even more engaging. Among the discussions, my contributions started to penetrate the conversations. I spoke about the importance of including activities that kept residents mentally active and physically engaged. I shared inspiring stories of what I had witnessed among the other residents, like the joy that simple bingo afternoons brought, or the transformation I saw when organizing craft workshops. I was encouraged to present projects and approve new initiatives that could make the nursing home a place not just of residents but also a space of vitality. With each meeting, the environment became more familiar, and I allowed myself to be enveloped by the collective energy of everyone there. It was as if we had a common goal, a desire to see that place transform into a truly welcoming and dynamic home. As I absorbed these experiences, I felt myself growing in power and creativity, as if each idea shared not only strengthened the proposal before the board, but also awakened a new version of myself. It was not merely about influence, it was the ability to shape my environment, to contribute to the vitality of the nursing home, and to transform forgotten voices into a resonant chorus. The secret meetings became a true platform for me to express myself. Many people had no idea what went on behind those locked doors. The board and I discussed openly, and together, we devised plans that, once implemented, would result in joy and excitement among the other residents. During one of these meetings, I decided to suggest creating a space where residents could share their skills and experiences, from cooking to playing an instrument. I envisioned a monthly fair where we could celebrate each person's hidden talents, offering new opportunities for interaction and learning. The idea was met with enthusiasm and soon became a project to be implemented. Seeing the board embrace this proposal and plan its execution was a moment of pure satisfaction. In those quiet hours, where conversations were filled with trust, I felt that I was leaving a mark on this place, an impression that, though discreet, would resonate in the lives of so many people. The meetings became the perfect occasion for me to present my ideas, and in the end, it felt like I was transforming past frustrations into something we could all invest our energies in. However, The secrecy of these meetings also brought a burden. I needed to keep everything confidential, knowing it could cause envy or jealousy among some other residents who might feel excluded from part of the process. It was a complex game, balancing the excitement over my new position with the need not to harm the relationships I had already cultivated. Thus, I became increasingly skilled at covering up the true reasons for my absences, trying to act in a way that no one would notice how much it meant to me. Over time, I realized that those meetings were not just about administrative decisions, but also a pathway to building a network of support and solidarity between the staff and residents. We became advocates for the voices of those who, for the most part, did not feel comfortable expressing their opinions. Each proposal that was approved, each idea that came to fruition, brought with it a breath of life that resonated in the daily activities of the nursing home. And thus, with each meeting, I not only shared my visions but began to become a vital part of the institution's administrative heart. So, as these secret nights unfolded, something even deeper began to happen. I was starting to redefine myself, forming an identity that transcended the simple role of a resident. Each meeting became another step toward rediscovery, a moment when my purpose illuminated, and the idea that I could make a difference became a concrete reality. The nursing home, which had previously represented an end, was revealing itself to be a new beginning, a space where collaboration and innovation could coexist, fostering a vibrant and meaningful community. And so, with this atmosphere of enthusiasm and expectation for transformation, I continued to meet with the board, seizing every opportunity to illuminate the paths we could walk together, knowing that each step taken brought us closer to a better future for all who lived there and had a voice yet to be heard. The magic of those secret nights revealed itself not only in what we were creating but also in the deep connection. We were forming a silent bond that united each of us under the same aspiration of love, understanding, and renewal, a feeling that was now transforming into a true manifesto of unity. I was climbing the ranks and had become a respected figure within the nursing home. Little did they know that this entire journey went far beyond a simple ascent. It represented the rediscovery of my inner strength and the power that resides in each of us, even when time seems to want to silence us. Since those first secret meetings with the board, I realized that something was changing not only in the way others viewed me but, more importantly, in how I began to see myself. Every idea I shared, every project I saw come to life, contributed to a growth I had never imagined possible. As the days passed, I became a reference for many. Residents began to seek my opinions. People approached me not only for advice on activities but also in the hope that I could express their anxieties and wishes to the board. This was a true test of my ability to balance my new position with the need not to exclude anyone from my circle of support. With every admiring glance, every gesture of gratitude, I felt more valued and, at the same time, more aware of the responsibility that came with the respect I had earned. The atmosphere in the nursing home began to change. I was no longer just passing the days. I was shaping that place with an energy that infected everyone. It was as if my recovery from silence and solitude had triggered a chain of transformations, where many began to open up, to engage, to bring forth their stories and voices. I became a catalyst, a support that fostered discussions and connections, and this further fueled my self-confidence. I felt not only respected but above all, recognized as an essential part of that community. Together, we started organizing workshops, themed gatherings, and activities that encouraged honest conversations. One afternoon, I had the idea to promote a story day where everyone could share their life experiences. The event not only turned out to be a success, but it also provided a space for many to tell their stories for the first time, releasing emotions that had been bottled up for so long. The sensation of being at the center of all this was indescribable. I could see on their faces how the sharing was positively affecting their lives. As I listened to these narratives, my position as the leader was no longer based solely on administrative decisions but was deeply rooted in the empathy and understanding I was now cultivating. What had once been just a group project began to take on larger dimensions. Achieving this new status had a profound impact on my self-esteem, but it also revealed the glory and challenges of being the link between the board and the residents. Many times, I found myself caught amidst conflicting interests and divergent opinions. Sometimes, I would be called to make a choice that would benefit one group to the detriment of another. and those moments tested me. I had to discern which proposals to preserve, always being careful to ensure no one felt excluded. Thus, I learned to listen intently to each side, seeking balance in conversations and finding solutions that resonated with the collective. One day, while we were organizing the next board meeting, I realized that the dynamics of my position had changed profoundly. The board began to consult me more frequently, recognizing my knowledge of the residents' desires and the culture I was helping to create. And, inadvertently, I not only took on a leadership role but also became a model to be followed. Conversations flowed more naturally, and I felt at ease, suggesting significant changes that could benefit everyone. One new project under discussion was the renovation of a community space where residents could gather and share more moments together. I was excited to see how my ideas could unfold into something tangible. As the idea began to gain traction among the board members and residents, I realized I had a power that was not merely about directing or confirming decisions. It was about ensuring that everyone's voices were heard and respected. I began to write in a journal all my ideas and insights, a record for myself and, in a way, a legacy to pass on. As I focused not only on myself but also on how I could promote change, a cycle of strength began. My self-confidence grew, and so did the impulse for those around us. However, amidst the emergence of so much respect and power, I kept a secret. I was not just a representative of the collective will. I was also in a delicate dance, striving to balance expectations. I was emerging as a leader, while at the same time dealing with the remnants of the past that still haunted me. The pride of how far I had come began to be overshadowed by a fear of failing and disappointing the trust that so many had placed in me. This internal struggle was a constant reminder that, while I was in a high position, the path was not free of challenges and insecurities. In those moments of solitude, when night fell and fatigue accumulated, I reflected on everything I had achieved and the lessons I still needed to learn. Despite the insecurities, the learning was rewarding, and as I looked around me, I saw not only the change in the environment but also the transformation within myself. The most meaningful interactions and the strongest bonds were being formed, not just between the board and the residents but also within me. I learned that true power lies in listening, in acting with compassion, and above all, in being authentic while navigating the complexities of leadership in a world that often demanded we set aside our vulnerabilities. With this new perspective, I was determined to keep pushing for everyone to have a voice and for the joys and needs of each individual to be truly seen and respected. And as this journey unfolded, I knew it was not just a matter of power. It was about the ability to weave individual stories into a rich and diverse tapestry, where we all would have our place. Respect that was not just reserved for me but for each of us, building a legacy that would echo for generations within that beloved nursing home. What my son didn't know was that I had always held the reins of that place. Throughout all these months, while things seemed to unfold in a way he could imagine was beyond my control, everything was actually happening under my silent influence. To many, I might appear merely as a resident, someone else passing the days, amidst the routine activities of the nursing home. But to those who looked more closely, I was the architect of an environment pulsating with life and creativity. I had dedicated myself to building connections, and each initiative I took was not just a sporadic contribution, but part of a broader plan that influenced the daily lives of all of us. While many interactions maintained a light and fun tone, there were also moments of genuine strategy, where my ideas and decisions shaped the atmosphere of the nursing home. Whenever he visited me, his eyes sparkled with pride, believing that everything was under the direction of the staff. But the reality was that behind each success, there was my personal touch, a work of invisible efforts that often went unnoticed. The meetings with the board, our secret gatherings, had become the balance through which I brought forth not just my ambitions but also the dreams and desires of those around me. Each project we discussed, each idea that came to life, was a reflection of the love I felt for everyone there. And indeed, it was not just the change of a physical space, but an uplifting transformation of souls. And, as I began to show my strength and skills, I realized that this truth would have to be revealed at some point. There was a weight in keeping this information to myself, as if it were a secret that had become too heavy to carry. For him, I wanted to be the mother who withdrew from decisions, the one who cared only about the well-being and happiness of the residents. But deep down, I always knew I had a much bigger role, that the impact of what I was doing was significant, and was not merely a reflection of authority but a gesture of deep and genuine love. One sunny afternoon, while tending to the community garden, I began to reflect on how liberating it would be to share this truth with my son. The idea of being seen not just as a matriarch, but as a driving force behind the direction of the nursing home grew within me like an urgent desire. Could he see that I was much more than he imagined? That in every joy I brought to others, I was also redeeming myself, and that the pleasure I derived from it was inseparable parts of the same whole. If only he could understand that my struggle was not just for myself, but for all those who called this place home. If only he could see that these were the reins I had always held firmly. The engine of change vibrated within me as I began to organize a special event, something that not only honored the community but also served as a stage for me to finally reveal what it meant to me. The Appreciation Day, as I decided to call it, would be the perfect occasion to showcase everything that had been achieved, and to share the truth that resonated in my heart. It was my opportunity to show my son that the strength he saw in me was not just a way of existing but a life mission that had suddenly awakened me. I would set the schedule to include moments of speech, where residents would have the chance to express their gratitude and share their stories, but also a space where I could, for the first time, say, yes, this is my contribution. And for that, I have always been here, guiding and loving every moment. As the event approached, nervousness intertwined with excitement. I could almost feel the vibrant energy of what was about to happen, and how the walls of the nursing home would resonate with the voices of truth, where everyone would develop a sense of belonging. For me, this was an opportunity to unite not only the community but also to bridge my internal world with the perception my son had of me. When the big day finally arrived, the emotion was in the air like a balloon about to burst. And as the residents gathered, I slowly felt that every small step I had taken up to that point was not only materializing but also becoming a bridge toward a revelation that transcended the physical space we occupied. When I finally reached the microphone, my heart was racing, but I knew I was about to pour out everything I had kept inside. I looked around, saw familiar faces, smiles that represented not only the challenges we faced, but also the strength gained from the journey. And then I began to share, with an open heart, how each person enriched my life, and how I had been the driving force behind the many changes I had witnessed, my voice emerging from a deep and love-filled place. Seizing this opportunity, I looked at my son, and what should have been a simple speech became a mechanism to pull him into my truth. My son, I spoke with emotion. What you may not have realized is that behind all these activities and changes, I have always been in control. Which may seem like a small victory for most, but for me, it is a space of healing and love that I have embraced. Each word seemed to resonate with strength, and I felt that the truth I had kept close to my heart was finally beginning to blossom. The depth of the connection that was being established around us was exquisite, and the applause and admiring eyes of the residents merely confirmed that we were all there, not just witnessing the revelation but celebrating the collective achievement. In that moment, the weight I carried dissipated, dissolving in the vibrant energies surrounding us. The smile on my son's face spoke more than any words could express. He saw beyond the figure of a mother, and understood that I had been and am a vital force, not only in his life but in the lives of all who had crossed my path. In those shared hours, I not only revealed a truth but also eternalized a connection that would unite our stories in an unbreakable bond. The nursing home was not just a place where we lived. It was a testament to what we could build together, a sacred home where everyone brought their voices and longings. And so, that revelation became not only a turning point for me but the beginning of a new journey that we would all embark on together, forming a legacy of resilience, love, and new possibilities that could never be disregarded. And it was at that point that I decided he would inherit nothing from me. The testament would remain my secret. As the days passed and the winds of change blew through the walls of the nursing home, a new determination formed within me, a will to safeguard what was truly important and precious in my life. The relationship I had with my son was heavy, marked by misunderstandings and disappointments, and I reached a moment when I realized that I could not simply let him inherit not only my material possessions but also the choices I had made throughout life, the experiences I valued, and the love I still held in my heart. The testament, which for many symbolizes an act of love and trust. became for me a burden of indecisions and frustrations. The idea of leaving something to someone who had not demonstrated appreciation for what truly mattered troubled me deeply. I remembered the conversations we had, where his words felt like a cutting knife, and the growing distance between us made me question the meaning of leaving a legacy. A silent anguish bubbled within me at the thought that what I built, the lessons I learned, could be disregarded by someone who did not seem to recognize the true value of the bond we shared. While reflecting on this during one of the quiet afternoons in the nursing home, walking through the garden where so many memories were created, I began to sketch a new narrative in my mind, something that would balance the desire to pass on my legacy and the need to protect my essence. All those years of dedication and love could not be left in the hands of someone who would not truly value them. What I wanted was for my spirit to continue to resonate and for my intentions to be understood after I was gone. Thus, I decided that my testament would not concern material possessions alone. It would be a reflection of the values I had always remained true to. I began to write, putting on paper not only what I owned but also the messages I wished to leave behind. Each word became a pact between me and the world, a testament to the life I lived. I wanted it to be a map, a guide so that, if he ever sought to understand my truth, he could read it clearly. Messages of wisdom, love, and the strength I had always followed in my journey filled the pages as I strove to convey not only my story but what truly mattered, the dance of life, the relationships that nourished my soul, and the decisions that shaped my path. The idea that my son would receive nothing in material form was intertwined with a hope that one day he might understand my perspective and perhaps reflect on his actions. The absence of tangible inheritances could become an opportunity to contemplate what is truly important. I would pass on my final words, but if he was not ready to hear them, then the testament would become an echo of my convictions, a secret I chose to preserve. So, as I worked on each clause, I confronted the harsh reality that it could be misinterpreted, but I wanted him to understand that by not bequeathing him material possessions, I was offering a chance to look at his own life, to reflect on his priorities, and perhaps to find his sense of purpose. Deep down, I hoped my decision would serve as a catalyst that would make him seek the value of the relationships we had, a gentle nudge to look beyond what he considered trivial. There, in the silence of my solitude, I felt that each word written in my testament was, in fact, an extension of what I hoped he would understand. Instead of remaining a symbol of lack, the testament was transforming into a vehicle of truth, a legacy that valued feelings, love, and lessons. Each filled page became an act of courage, a rebirth in which the pain of our relationship could be transformed into wisdom that, who knows, he might one day use. And when I completed that document, I realized it was not merely a testament, but a deep desire for us all to learn to appreciate what truly matters: love, respect, and empathy. I wanted my son to know that even in the shadows of our relationship, there was still a thread of light to be followed. In many respects, I saw myself as a guardian of that love, a person who, upon leaving this world, wished to leave a sense of continuity and discovery through a legacy that wasn't limited to financial inheritances but extended to wisdom and understanding of emotions. Nights became moments of meditation and introspection, as I pondered what was truly essential to leave behind. With each thought, I felt that what I was building could transcend the concept of legacy. I began to believe that by relinquishing what could be a common inheritance, I was choosing to embrace a path leading to the true essence of life, one filled with love and meaningful connections that would be worth more than any material value I might ever possess. Thus, looking at the testament I now kept secret, I felt a new energy within me, a reassuring feeling that regardless of what would happen after I departed, I would leave something enduring. What I truly sought was that, even in the absence of physical belongings, the truth I housed in my heart would live on, waiting to be discovered and understood. This was the true inheritance I wished to give my son, a gift for him to achieve a life that was authentic, rich in meaning, and that would ultimately connect him not only to me but to the beautiful tapestry of experiences we all share. And so, with the testament securely hidden away, I not only completed a document but also created a mirror, where all the nuances of life and love could reflect the light necessary to guide his future journey. And if there ever came a time when he looked back and recognized what truly mattered, he would know that a well-lit path awaited him. I struggled between the desire for revenge and the need for forgiveness. As the days dragged on and the pain of betrayal fueled an internal storm, I felt as if I were trapped in a labyrinth of conflicting emotions that made each moment a battle. The memories of open wounds replayed in my mind, a constant echo that left me no peace. The image of my son, once synonymous with love and joy, began to transform into a battlefield where I questioned, how could he do this to me? Anger surged from a deep place, and the sharp words I longed to say became the blades of a revenge plan that, with each passing moment, seduced me further away from who I truly was. It was a vicious cycle, where every dark thought that generated more anger created an ever-growing chasm between us. The desire for retribution became an enticing refuge, a way to find control in a world where I felt powerless. The inner struggle took on a life of its own, and my mind spun between the impulse to retaliate and the wish to free my heart from the weight that pressed down like lead. In the quietest moments, when solitude became more palpable, I reflected on who I was becoming. What did anger really promise me? A fleeting pleasure, an illusion that masked the pain. But it was also a poison that corroded my essence and simultaneously rented space in my soul. Nights were particularly difficult when thoughts invaded my being like dancing shadows that gave me no respite. I found myself reliving arguments, analyzing phrases he had said, trying to understand how everything had come to this point. In each mental replay, anger surged, making the desire for revenge seemed like the only way out, the only means to feel strong again. But deep down, that strength wasn't real. And while I tried to convince myself it was justified to make him feel the same kind of pain he caused me, a part of me wondered if that would really make me happy, or just drag me further into darkness. Conversations with other residents of the nursing home, always seemed to bring forth a new perspective. They spoke about the power of forgiveness, how letting go can be the key to true freedom. I listened attentively, as their words intertwined with my heart. It was as if, for a moment, I wanted to experience that feeling of release. But soon the anger would rebound, like a fierce dog unwilling to share its territory. I knew that forgiveness was not something offered lightly, especially when the pain was still so alive. But I also understood that remaining tied to this desire for revenge was like carrying a burden on my back, an anchor that prevented my soul from sailing freely. The question was, how could I forgive someone who had hurt me so deeply? The answer never came easily. At times, forgiveness seemed a distant word, an unattainable goal, but on other occasions, there was a spark of hope, a faint light that flickered and whispered that perhaps forgiveness was the only way to regain control over my life. I learned that forgiveness did not mean absolving the person of their actions, but freeing myself from the prison I had built with chains of resentment. And so, I began to ponder how it would be possible to adopt this view, even if the path seemed slippery and fraught with uncertainty. As the leaves around me changed to vibrant hues, I found myself thinking about the transience of life. If everything around me was in constant transformation, why should I remain anchored to this state of emotional chess? The idea that each day brings a new opportunity to choose how to respond to circumstances filled me. Every moment I lived in anger was a day lost, a chance escaped to experience life in all its fullness. And so, even when anger was most present, I began to seek small ways to redirect that energy. Who could benefit from what I had to offer, even if it was just a smile or a kind word in a simple exchange during the day. Ultimately, I realized that the dilemma between revenge and forgiveness was not just about what I wanted to do with my emotions, but about who I wished to be. I wanted to be the woman who allowed herself to love, who did not let the shackles of anger imprison her, who stood firm in her essence even in the toughest battles. Forgiveness began to seem not just an option but a necessity. Understanding that, above all, I deserved peace became an increasingly clear truth. Anger, though powerful, would not give me what I truly sought: the serenity that came from forgiveness, self-love, and the ability to see the other as human, with flaws and weaknesses. And so, I continued to fight, but now with a new battle. In Minda, step-by-step process that would guide me away from the desire to repay in kind and toward a genuine desire to restore peace within myself. It might take time, and that was completely acceptable. Every small step toward forgiveness became a victory and, at the same time, an opportunity for healing. And, as I navigated these uncharted waters, the prospect of forgiveness became not just a distant goal but a journey. that showed me the indomitable strength that resided within me, a reminder that I was more than my moments of weakness, more than the pain that followed me. With each step I took, the anger began to dissolve, and with it, the love for myself, the unwavering love that had always been there, just waiting to be cultivated and nurtured. I believed that I could finally move away from the darkness and make room for a new light, where forgiveness would not only become a choice, but an intrinsic part of my evolution. The being I was becoming would emerge not from the flames of revenge, but from the serenity of forgiveness, where my heart could finally rest and find its way back to the peace I so desperately sought. With each new day, I observed how the nature around me reflected this transformation. The leaves changing colors did not struggle against their transience. On the contrary, they accepted the cycle of life. I often wondered why I, as a human being, should be different, why I could not simply flow like water in a river, allowing myself to be carried by the currents of forgiveness and reconciliation. This analogy began to become a light in the darkness I inhabited, a gentle glow inviting me to let go of the bitterness that had anchored me for so long. I found myself revisiting old memories, not with the urgency to relive them, but with a more attentive and loving gaze. I began to remember not only the wounds but also the lessons that each experience brought me. What once seemed a painful event was now transforming into an opportunity for growth. Time, which I had previously seen as an enemy, became my ally, friend patiently teaching me the importance of self-care and compassion. Instead of seeking retribution, I began to cultivate love. And this love was not just for those around me, but primarily for myself. I understood that by freeing myself from the desire for revenge, I was opening doors to new possibilities. I thought about the bonds I could reestablish, the dialogues that could be opened, and more importantly, the space I was creating in my heart to embrace not only old memories, but also new experiences that were yet to come. I began to visualize my relationship with my son not just in terms of the pain that separated us, but as an opportunity for healing and understanding, where we could reconnect beyond the wounds that marked us. With each reflection, I realized that forgiveness was an act that not only benefited the person I wished to forgive, but primarily me, who longed for peace and the right to climb toward a new emotional level. It was a courageous thought, and the idea of freeing myself required me to face not only the pain of the past but also the vulnerability that comes with reconciliation. However, vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but rather a genuine expression of the strength I had been building. It indicated that I was willing to open my heart, my mind, and my soul to something newer. Future where memories would no longer be shadows, but guiding lights that illuminated the journey awaiting me. As the days went by, with each moment of reflection, I felt lighter, more connected to the essence that had always been within me. The desire for revenge transformed into something irrelevant, like a distant echo, as I allowed myself to succeed in the true goal of finding freedom. This freedom encompassed not only an emotional liberation, but also an internal renewal, a new way of seeing the world, perceiving relationships, and viewing myself as part of a larger whole. Forgiveness began to appear not as an isolated act, but as a thread weaving relationships in my life more harmoniously and meaningfully. Thus, as I prepared to conclude this phase of my journey, I realized that the most important step would be to truly give my feelings the space they deserved. It was not about forgetting what had happened, but about integrating those experiences in a way that strengthened me. I wanted to celebrate what I had learned, even from the pain, and use it as fuel to grow and help others along the way. I envisioned creating a space of understanding, not only between my son and me, but also among all those who had struggled with their own emotional battles. The conclusion of this cycle did not necessarily mean a final period, but a passage into a new chapter in my life, one where true victory lay in opening my heart to love and forgiveness. I committed to living with compassion, understanding that everyone fights their own battles. I could communicate with my son, open my heart, and perhaps find a way to unite us again, not as we were before, but as two awakened individuals who learned from adversity and could now meet on a deeper level. And so, as I prepared to close this cycle, I made a promise to myself that, regardless of what the future held, I would allow myself to live fully, to love deeply, and, above all, to be strong enough to let go of the anger that had imprisoned me for so long. The path ahead was filled with possibilities, and I wanted to embrace each of them with a light heart, willing to let the light of forgiveness radiate among the shadows of the past, creating an internal space that would promote not only my growth, but also that of those willing to walk beside me on this new journey of reconciliation and true love. I decided it was time to confront my son and reveal everything to him. This moment, so awaited yet so feared, loomed over me like a dense cloud. The idea of finally opening my heart and sharing everything I had kept so deeply hidden filled me with a mix of anxiety and hope. It was a step I knew I needed to take, not just for him but also for myself. The weight of keeping secrets, of hiding parts of my life, was something I could no longer bear, and I realized that by continuing this way, I was merely allowing the ghosts of the past to dictate my reality. As I prepared, a flood of memories invaded my mind, images of days marked by joys and sorrows. Each memory carried a fragment of the woman I had been, a woman who had made choices amid a swirl of intense emotions. I knew that by embracing this moment of revelation, I would not only be exposing the truth I carried, but I would also be opening myself up to a new future, one where genuine communication could flourish and where the relationship I had with my son could finally strengthen. I decided I needed to choose a suitable environment for this conversation, a place where he could feel comfortable, free from distractions, and open to dialogue. I chose the garden of the nursing home, a space that had always been a refuge for me, where the scent of flowers and the songs of birds created an atmosphere of tranquility. I wanted this space to embrace the sincerity I was about to share, to reflect the beauty around it, which mirrored the courage and hope in my heart. When I invited him to talk, I noticed his gaze contained curiosity and a hint of apprehension. I sat beside him, and before I could find the right words, my vulnerability washed over me. There was so much I wanted to say, so much I needed to express, but how could I put into words the complexity of everything I had experienced and felt? Meanwhile, my heart raced, and I knew that every second was precious, so I took a deep breath and let the wave of emotions flow. My son, I began with a gentle yet firm tone. There's something I've been holding inside, something we need to discuss. He looked me in the eyes, and I sensed a mix of apprehension and expectation in his gaze. The words slipped through my mind like water, and I continued. Many things have happened over the years, and I feel it's important for you to know the truth, not just about me but about us. With each phrase, the barriers I had erected began to crumble, and courage began to fill the space that had previously been occupied only by silence and misunderstandings. As I spoke, I transformed my memories into words, painting the picture of my journey from the painful moments that had cast a shadow of resentment to the lessons I learned along the way. I talked about the mistakes I made, about the choices I took under the pressure of emotions. I told him about the desire for revenge that consumed me, but I also emphasized how much I had learned and grown since then. In sharing this, I was not only expressing the truth that resided within me, but also allowing love and honesty to be the foundations of our conversation. He listened attentively, and with every word I spoke, I felt that we were beginning to build a bridge, a connection that transcended the past. The vulnerability I shared with him was not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of courage, and the weight that had troubled me began to dissolve, giving way to a new sense of relief. I wanted him to understand how his actions had impacted my life and how that had led me to reflect on my own decisions, highlighting that forgiveness had truly become a vital choice in my journey. As we continued to talk, he began to respond. Instead of reactions of anger or rejection, I sensed an openness in his gaze, a desire to understand. He also revealed his own frustrations and doubts regarding our relationship, and that touched me deeply. By allowing our voices to intertwine, we both began to see a new vista of our stories, where we were not just mother and son, but to human beings trying to find each other after a long period of separation. The conversation unfolded with moments of questions and sharing, where each answer became a crucial piece in rebuilding mutual trust. I spoke of my longings, of the fears that haunted my nights as I wondered if we could truly find each other amid all of this. In the same way, he opened his soul, and this emotional exposure allowed us to see that despite the wounds, there was a sincere desire for healing and reconciliation. I felt more connected to him than ever, and I realized we were both ready to take the next step. Understanding the past wasn't enough. I needed to accept it so we could move forward. It was essential that he knew I carried in my heart not only the pain but also the hope that we could rise together. As I concluded our conversation, I made a point to emphasize that, despite everything, I loved him unconditionally, and that this love would be the fuel that would allow us to face whatever lay ahead. With tears in his eyes, he hugged me, and in that gesture, I felt that we were indeed overcoming the chasm that had separated us for so long. It was the liberation we both had been waiting for, and as we pulled away from each other, I realized that the fear had dissipated. We had started a new chapter, and although I knew the road ahead would not be without challenges, I was excited to explore the possibilities that awaited us. This conversation not only reminded us of who we were but also showed us who we could be. The future now lay before us, open and full of new hopes. It may not have been easy to face my son and reveal everything I had kept hidden, but in doing so, I not only freed myself but also opened doors for a genuine connection that could lead us to a place of love and understanding that once seemed so distant. Forgiveness began to be fueled not only by words but by actions we would need to build together. And the smile that appeared on his face made me believe that a new beginning was just beginning for both of us. I'd scheduled a meeting. He seemed anxious, unsure of what I had to say. Every detail was meticulously arranged in my mind, and I knew this would be a crucial turning point in our relationship. The chosen location was a cozy cafe, with outdoor tables surrounded by vibrant flowers and the soft melody of a piano playing in the background. I wanted the environment to reflect what I hoped to achieve, a safe space to open my heart and allow the words to flow, the aroma of fresh coffee mixed with the fragrance of the flowers, creating a cozy atmosphere waiting to be filled by our voices. Before the meeting, I found myself revisiting the whirlwind of thoughts that had passed through my head. What would I say? How would he react? Each question called for a moment of deep reflection, and as my fingers touched the surface of the table, I recalled all the times I had failed to express myself as I wished, the feelings that had been bottled up, and the conversations that never happened. The weight of those memories bore down on me, but they also served as fuel, a reminder that change was not only necessary but urgent. I wanted him to know that above all, I truly loved him, and that this love gave me the courage to face what we were about to discuss. When he arrived, I could see the uncertainty in his eyes, a mix of fear and expectation that both hurt and encouraged me to move forward. The hesitant smile that emerged on his face revealed that he was trying to hide his feelings, but anxiety crossed his features. He sat across from me, and in that moment, time seemed to slow down. The chaos of the outside world faded away, and it was just the two of us, lost in a sea of unspoken emotions and untold stories. "Hi," he said, his voice revealing a touch of vulnerability. "You called me. Is everything okay?" His concern was palpable, and it made me feel both nostalgia and love. It was something I needed to cherish at that moment. Even though we were on the brink of a delicate conversation, there was a genuine desire to create space for both of us. That initial moment was an opening, and I saw it as a reconnection space, something that could serve as a foundation for everything we would discuss. That as I held the coffee cup between my hands, the warmth of the vessel brought me the comfort I needed at that moment. "Yes, everything is fine. Actually, I just want you to know how I feel, about us." The words flowed more easily now, although my heart was still racing. I knew I had to be honest, but the essence of sincerity required a vulnerability that wasn't easy to share. The fear of the unknown had accompanied me, but at that moment, I was resolute in my purpose to open the doors to a new phase of our lives. "I've been feeling very reflective lately," I continued. "And first and foremost, I want you to know that regardless of the challenges we've faced, you are important to me." Observing the change in his expression gave me new strength. He seemed to relax a bit, and the tension in his shoulders began to dissipate. The journey we had taken up to that point was filled with nuances, filled with emotional deserts we needed to cross. But I hoped that day would mark a rebirth, a new chance to connect and understand. He looked at me for a moment, as if absorbing every word. "I've been thinking about us, too. The truth is, I'm not perfect, and I know I've made mistakes," he said, the sincerity in his voice so palpable that I couldn't help but smile faintly. It was a starting point, a glimpse that we were ready to navigate the complexity of our story. As the conversation flowed, I began to touch on topics that had previously been taboo. I spoke about the wounds that still hurt, the memories that haunted me, and the weight of the past that I once thought I could never leave behind. I shared my insecurities and how they had distanced me from myself, which also affected our relationship. He listened attentively, and I saw in his eyes not only regret, but also a deep desire to understand what I was feeling. "I never wanted to hurt you," he replied, and in that response lay a vulnerability that suffused the air around us. "I wish I could go back and fix things. I feel like I've let you down." I perceived the anguish in his voice, and at the same time, I realized we were starting from a place of empathy and genuine love. The fact that he was willing to acknowledge his flaws and open up to me made me believe there was still room to rebuild our lives, even if it required time and patience. As the conversation progressed, I felt a sense of satisfaction in knowing that despite all the pain, we were both willing to be honest, and our vulnerability was beginning to weave a new bond between us. The walls that had risen around us began to crumble, revealing a connection that was stronger than our differences. We talked about dreams, expectations, and, most importantly, what we wanted to build together from here on out. Every word was a new layer of repair, a new opportunity to understand and embrace one another. The sun began to set, casting a golden light over the table, and with that came a feeling of renewal. What was once a planned meeting transformed into a meaningful exchange, a gathering where we were not only discussing what had been but also dreaming together about what could be. As I looked into his eyes, I knew we were on the brink of a new journey, a multitude of promises beginning to blossom between us. The fear that had once separated us started to become a motivation for overcoming. At the end of the conversation, a genuine smile blossomed on my face. I realized I had celebrated something much larger than what was on the horizon. We were already becoming part of a healing process, not only as mother and son but as two souls, ready to reclaim what seemed lost and face what was yet to come. We left there with the certainty that, regardless of the storms that still awaited us, we were ready to navigate together, wiser and stronger. And our future was beginning to shine before us. When I revealed to him that I had managed the nursing home and excluded him from the will, the shock was indescribable. The air around us seemed to freeze, and I could feel the atmosphere charged with palpable tension, as if the words that had just escaped my lips were arrows shot at him, hitting a sensitive point I feared touching. His eyes widened, and the expression on his face was a mix of confusion, disbelief, and deep disappointment. I knew this revelation was the climax of a long and complex story that was finally about to unfold. But the pain this truth caused was something I had not anticipated would affect the moment so deeply. I sat in front of him, capturing every nuance of his reaction as he tried to process the impact of my words. The certainty I had of needing to be honest collided immediately with the reality that this truth might be a devastating blow. He seemed lost in thought, his hands trembling slightly as he struggled to comprehend what I was really saying. I recalled so many times when love and pain intertwined in the stories I shared with him, and now there was a new layer of emotion to be added, the weight of helplessness and betrayal that might linger. Why? He finally managed to articulate, his voice choked with confusion. "How could you exclude me from the will? What did I ever do to you?" The pain in his words pierced my heart like a knife, and I found myself battling feelings of guilt and regret that surged instantly. It was a natural impulse to want to defend myself, to explain my reasons in a way that would soften the blow he had just received. But I knew that at this moment, honesty was imperative. I wanted him to know that the decision had not been easy, but that there was an internal logic, an urgency to protect him from something that had been a burden for years. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just that I don't want you to inherit a legacy that may not be what I've always dreamed of. I gathered the courage to explain. The legacy I've built isn't just about material possessions but the principles I want you to carry with you, and honestly, I didn't want to pass you such a heavy burden. He listened attentively, his gaze a mixture of pain and confusion, and I could see he was trying to connect the pieces of the puzzle I had offered him. "You excluded me because you don't believe in me, because you don't trust who I am now." His voice was laden with frustration, and I could see the storm of emotions brewing in his chest. At that moment, it was as if the weight of the past had manifested in the present, and all our previous interactions, the unhealed wounds, resurfaced. I understood his questions and the anger that arose, prompting me to reflect on how my choices could have been viewed through critical eyes. It was a risk I knew I had to take, and it would take time for him to grasp the depth of this decision. It's not about a lack of trust. I tried to articulate the words calmly, seeking a balance between my desire to be honest and the need not to hurt him further. I simply realized my love for you was postponing the truth that needed to be lived, and it was never a matter of not believing in who you are now. What happened is that I needed to set boundaries. I needed to protect myself, while also wanting to give you the chance to build your own legacy, away from the mistakes I made. The storm within him seemed to calm, but there were still flashes of pain manifesting in his gaze. We began to engage in a deeper dialogue, where shocks slowly transformed into a conversation about the lessons each of us had learned over the years. The present, which had seemed daunting before, now began to shape itself as an opportunity for healing. But it would require time and patience from both of us. The conversation stretched over minutes that felt like hours, each breath nurturing a dialogue that imbued weight to our voices. I spoke about my desire to protect his hopes and dreams, and he voiced his exhaustion from carrying the weight of the consequences of his past actions. We were both profoundly connected, and I realized how love continued to be the driving force behind each word, even when the truths we shared were difficult to swallow. What I had revealed was a part of me, but it was also becoming a key that could open doors to a new phase in our lives. Feelings manifested with a new intensity as the dialogue progressed, and I could see that the emotions that had once been a source of pain were starting to transform into understanding. He looked at me with a mix of wounds and questions, but at the same time, there was a glimmer of acceptance gradually forming in his eyes. The initial shock had given way to a space where empathy and the desire to move forward could flourish. With every question he asked, I felt we were so close to reaching an understanding that could change the course of our relationship. After all, truth does not exist without the willingness to listen and open up. And there, in that cafe, amid the tumult of emotions surrounding us, I felt we were cultivating a new kind of bond, one rooted in honesty and tenderness. The weight of the revelation that had once made our conversation distressing was, after all, becoming a catalyst for change. Thus, by the end of that intense conversation, I realized that the words that had once been a barrier now served as threads of connection, intertwining our stories as we built a new beginning together. Looking at him, I saw not just a confused son, but a human being seeking reconciliation. And in that gaze, I understood that our path was indeed a road filled with possibilities, where the final revelation became a new hope for what was still to come. I learned that love is complex and that the decisions we make shape our lives in ways we often cannot foresee. Throughout my journey, when I look back and review each step, every choice, and every emotion I experienced, I realized that love is not a simple feeling. It is an intricate fabric woven with the threads of our experiences, expectations, and even our pains. What I understood about love before is not even half of what I come to comprehend now. It was easy to think that love was a straightforward path, a straight line leading us to happiness, but the truth is that it resembles more of a labyrinth, full of unexpected twists and forks that challenge us to explore our inner selves. Understanding this led me to reflect on the choices I made along the way. Each decision was not merely an isolated action but a seed planted that would bear fruit. And sometimes these fruits were bitter, while at other times they could be sweet and rewarding. I found myself countless times facing the dilemma of prioritizing my feelings over others, questioning whether my desire for love and acceptance should be placed above the needs of those I loved. The complexity of love often manifested as a scene of internal conflicts, where the desire to protect those I loved coexisted with the need not to lose myself in this emotional game. This learning journey led me to value open communication. I discovered that often, the lack of communication is what creates distance, preventing love from expanding and flourishing. When I decided to be honest with my son and share my truths, I realized that this not only strengthened our connection, but also allowed me to feel freer. The courage to reveal the feelings I had kept hidden and the difficult decisions contributed to a significant transformation, not only in our relationship, but also within myself. I learned that vulnerability, which is often seen as weakness, actually holds immense power. It is the door that allows us to connect with the genuine and sincere. Reflecting on the complexities of love also made me understand how forgiveness plays a crucial role in our capacity to love fully and unconditionally. Resentment is often a weight we carry, an anchor that prevents us from moving forward, and in forgiving, we free not only those who hurt us, but primarily ourselves. When I chose to forgive my son and also myself, everything began to change. The act of forgiving is, in essence, a decision that alters the direction of our lives, allowing love to flow back and expand. I learned to see forgiveness as an act of love not only toward others but as a gift I give myself in order to restore inner peace. And as I traced this path of learning, I realized that life is made up of cycles, where there is no absolute end, but rather a series of new beginnings. Just as the seasons change, we also undergo constant transformations, and each experience leaves a mark, a lesson we carry with us. The pains and joys shape us and teach us to be more resilient, to find strength within ourselves, and to cultivate compassion for both ourselves and others. Life is a dance, and love, this powerful force, is the music that guides us. At times, the notes are soft and harmonious, while at others, they are challenging and intense. But it is precisely this diversity that brings our learning to life. Ultimately, I have come to accept that, no matter how complex relationships may be, they are always in motion. They require dedication and a willingness to evolve. And the key to growth lies in our ability to nurture connections with empathy and openness. Looking deeply into the relationship I have with my son, I can see that we are merely beginning a new chapter. The decisions we made along our path have brought us here. And now we have the wonderful opportunity to redefine our bond, basing it on love, understanding, and mutual respect. Every new conversation, every revelation brings with it a chance to start anew, to open the doors to a love that goes beyond wounds, nourishing itself on truth and forgiveness. And as I reflect on all of this, I see that love, despite its complications, is a syllogism of everything we are. The decisions we make shape our lives, but the lessons we learn along the way illuminate our path and allow us to expand love in the purest and most sincere way possible. Finally, I realized that this journey is not just about learning to love, but about learning to be loved as well. It is a two-way street, and each step I take brings me closer to the realization that love is, honestly, the reason we are here. What I have learned goes far beyond what I could express in words. It is a knowledge that resides in the heart, a flame I continue to nurture, guiding me with each new dawn, with the hope that regardless of the complexities, there will always be space for love to blossom and transform into something even more beautiful and profound. And so, at 70 years old, I am no longer an abandoned grandmother, but a strong woman who not only survived but also thrived. Getting here has not been an easy journey. On the contrary, each of my days has been filled with challenges, losses, and accomplishments that have shaped me. I've grown to accept adversity as a natural part of the life process, and with each fall, I rose a little stronger, a little wiser. Reflecting on everything I have lived, I realize that my journey is not just a story of resilience, but a celebration of transformation. Looking back, I feel the weight of my experiences and, at the same time, the lightness of knowing I have managed to reinvent myself through different phases of my life. The weight of the past has become a lighter burden, a reason to smile and not to cry. When I think about the woman I once was, I envisioned a young dreamer, full of hopes but also filled with uncertainties. The ups and downs of life have shown me that each choice, each decision, carried with it a weight that could lead me to incredible paths or dead ends. I felt the pain of betrayal, as when I trusted people who did not deserve my faith, and also the lightness of forgiveness, which over time provided me with the capacity to seek inner peace. All these feelings and emotions intertwined to teach me that behind every experience lies a lesson to be learned and an opportunity for growth. Now, looking at my life and what I have accomplished, I feel that self-confidence has blossomed within me. I am no longer that woman who allowed herself to feel inferior, who hid behind the fear of failure or what others thought. Today, I can say that I recognize my worth. I have learned to deeply respect myself and understand the importance of living moments that truly matter. Life is full of uncertainties, but I have chosen to embark on a journey of self-discovery, where I learn to embrace authenticity, to be true to myself, and to refuse to harbor anything that does not nourish me. The strength I carry in my heart now is a reflection of the choices I have made, the sacrifices I have accepted, and the battles I have faced. While many see age as a sign of decline, I see it as an opportunity to shine even more brightly. With each passing year, my voice grows stronger, my mind expands, and my heart fills with wisdom. Experience is one of the best teachers life can offer, and I am eternally grateful for every lesson learned. And you, what would you do in a situation like this? This question resonates within me not only as a challenge, but as a calling for you to consider your own choices and the paths you decide to take. Life is made up of choices, and I encourage you to dive deep into reflecting on your decisions. Are you making them wisely? Each path you choose to follow will shape not only your destiny but also the person you become along this journey. Life is flexible and mutable, and at the same time, we have the ability to make it extraordinary, depending on the path we decide to take. Remember that the power resides in your hands. You are the protagonist of your story. What kind of story do you want to tell? Radiating confidence and grace. The expression of someone who has understood the secrets of life, the nuances of love, and the value of conscious choices. Every wrinkle on your face tells a story. Every smile reflects a mountain that has been climbed. Life is an intricate tapestry of lived moments, shared laughter, and shed tears. And the beauty of it all is that even after the storms, there is always a rainbow waiting to be enjoyed. So, as you navigate the sea of your decisions, know that you can find the treasures that exist in this wonderful journey of being who you are. And with every step you take, choose to thrive, choose to love, and choose to live fully, for life is, above all, an extraordinary ode to the freedom of being ourselves. If you connected with this story and know someone who has lived similar experiences, don't hesitate to share this video, comment, like, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing real and inspiring stories like this. Your interaction is essential for us to create a community where we can learn and grow together. Exchanging experiences and strengthening bonds, every like, every share helps us reach more people, allowing real voices and touching stories to spread. Join us and be a part of this journey.